Well, hospital porters' pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Hapanwo TV. Right, I decided to come out and do another ghost watch, or another ghost hunt. Only this time, this is just a random one really. It's, I've got no tip-offs that something big is going to happen tonight. I'm just in this field by this patch of woodland which you can't see, but hope you can see me because I've got like this night light on. It's pretty chilly tonight. Now, as I said, this is random really, but it's a place it's a place near where I used to live. Now, if you look on Google Maps, you'll see it because it's in Oxford. It's actually near Southfield Golf Course. If you want to sort of know where I am. Now, the reason I come here is, like I said, I used to live in this area. I've moved since then, but when I was a little kid, I used to come up and play around here, and I used to feel drawn to it, as if there was some kind of presence here. And another reason for choosing this place is that over there, I don't know if you can see those lights, that's the Churchill Hospital. Now, and over in that direction is the Warnford Hospital, which is a psychiatric hospital. Now, you know, the thing about ghosts is there's a lot of misconceptions about ghosts. People think they're kind of they're things which, like these hooded cowled figures with chains that clank around graveyards, you know, going woo woo. In fact, the truth of the matter is, you know, you're not much more like, I don't think, from what I've seen, from what I've read, you're not more likely to see a ghost in a graveyard as anywhere else. Ghosts seem to appear in places where there's a lot of suffering, a lot of pain, a lot of death among humans or animals. Places like battlefields or crime scenes. But the absolute number one spot, from what I've seen, is hospitals. And we're right by this Churchill Hospital, which is actually a hospital that dates back to the 1940s. It's much older than the John Radcliffe, where I served proudly as a hospital porter for 23 years. Now, so I'm just sort of like waiting here to see if I see anything or hear anything strange. I think I'm very confident after what happened at St Frieswise tonight when I hear that strange noise. Now, I don't know if you've watched, hopefully you've watched that film by now. I mean, I've played that section back over and over again. I turned the volume up to full volume, right? To full gain. I can't hear anything on the soundtrack at the point where I heard that voice in my ear. So it's not something that appeared on the soundtrack, which is a shame. But it was just, it didn't form a coherent sound. It didn't form any coherent words. It was just a single syllable. Lasted a split second. Sounded like a child or a woman's voice. Now, somebody suggested it might be Aleister Crowley, and I've listened to some of the old amateur recordings of Crowley, and he had quite a sort of high voice, almost like a woman or child's voice. But there's no way of knowing. I don't think it was Crowley, because if you remember from the background I told you about, Andrew Collins tried to channel Aleister Crowley there, according to Ellis. And he mentions Andrew mentions it in his book. Now, I'm not going to try and channel anything. All right, I'm just going to stand here for a moment, see if anything happens. As I said, there's misconceptions about ghosts. I mean, they're not. I mean, you're almost as likely to see them in daytime as you are in nighttime as well. You know, So I've got that little windshield on, which is very, very effective. Hope it works. There's actually very little wind tonight. You're as likely to see them in daylight as you are in night times. And I can hear someone whistling. If you can hear that. There's some fireworks going off over there. We might see some in a minute. I could just hear someone whistling. Oh, it's gone. But Ghosts, I mean, people say, well, ghosts are they're the souls of dead people. We don't know that. Rather like, people assume UFOs are alien creatures from another planet, but we don't know that. There's a light coming towards me. Don't know if you can see it. I think it's somebody with a torch. Maybe that's who's whistling. Moving, maybe he's on a bike. We'll get out of the way. Be careful, I got stung by bloody nettles earlier on. I'm on a pathway actually, through the meadow. Now, you're like I say, assumptions, there are assumptions about UFOs. That UFOs are spacecraft, basically, that fly here from some other planet, which is either somewhere in our solar system, or it becomes increasingly less likely as the evidence gathers, from another solar system, orbiting another star, what they call an exoplanet. And these are basically nuts and bolts craft, like our own space shuttle, but more sophisticated. But that's actually, and the aliens inside are basically flesh and blood creatures like ourselves. All right, but that is an assumption. All right, we don't know that. There's very little evidence to actually say that's the case. It's kind of an assumption. It's way because since the space age we've interpreted them that way. You know what I mean? The light is going over there now. I think it's just a guy carrying a torch. That's probably him that was whistling. This is very much an assumption. We don't know that that's what UFOs are, and there's little evidence to say that they are that. But I'm not, this is not to say I'm about to turn skeptic. I know they're not all weather balloons. They're not all levitating lighthouses. They're not all truckloads of burning manure flying through the sky. Driven by parachute test dummies. No, they're not all that. They are something else. They're something paranormal. Paranormal being simply a word we use to describe things which we have no explanation for yet. I say the same about ghosts. Like you say, you can see ghosts of living people. I don't know how much you can see of the ground. It's just grassy at the moment. Here's the path. There's my feet. It's a bit muddy actually. What's that there? There's a bush there. There's a tree over there, but I'm not going right into the long grass because it's full of nettles. Like I say, a lot of ghosts that are seen are ghosts of living people. Some people see ghosts of the living, and if you see your own, you might even see your own ghost, your living ghost, which is called a doppelganger. And it's supposed to be bad if you see that, because it's a sign that you're about to die. And this happened to several people, like Percy Shelley, the poet, and several other people. And if you read Anthony Peake's book, Is There Life After Death and The Demon, you'll see, you'll hear about that. It's very interesting. And Anthony's actually going to be a guest on Hapanwo Radio, not this week coming, but the one after. The guest on this week's Hapanwo Radio, which is this Tuesday coming, that is the Tuesday, the 13th? Yeah, the 13th. Is someone you'll actually find equally interesting, I think, because it's a guy called Steve Trueblue, who's an Australian man who has studied the skeptics. Oh, there's a light coming. And he explains why these things are not true. You see? Yeah. Evening. It's alright, it's just someone with a light. I'll just do that. So I just don't want to lose my night vision.
No, sorry,
hello,
yeah,
it's alright. It's just a man with a dog. Now, so Steve explains that he sort of he's analysed the skeptics, and he can make people understand why the skeptics are wrong, And he sort of understood them for what they are, rather than the ultimate authorities of science and reason. They are actually a cultural movement and a political movement, which it doesn't get it all right. In fact, it gets an awful lot wrong. And Steve is actually a very vocal critic. So I do recommend listening to Hapanwo Radio at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, this Tuesday coming, the 13th of November. Go to www.criticalmassradio.co.uk. If you miss it, don't worry, because it'll be on the podcast and you can listen to that anytime you like. So check the podcast if you missed the show. I always put the hot number down on Hapanwo Radio on the blog. Oh, there's another. Did you see that? Firework went off again. Now there's a sort of path going up this way. I'm just going to follow that path now, because if it is a path, not just my imagination. There's damn nettles everywhere. So what are ghosts? Like I said, you're like ghosts. Firstly, ghosts can be seen any time of day or night. Secondly, ghosts do have a physical presence. I mean, this is the thing. They're not sort of like. Sometimes they are solid in the terms that they have a sort of like people say they're all you put your hands through them and stuff. Well, that's not always the case. There's people who've shaken hands with ghosts. Ghosts have picked things up and manoeuvred things, and ghosts have even driven cars. There's a famous example of the president of Finland who got into a lift and he pressed the buttons of the lift. It's a very famous case, that. So what are they? Well, I kind of use the word. I use the word bleed over. What I suspect is the case, and many serious researchers suspect this too, is that ghosts are actually, ghosts may be several different phenomena. You know, some of them may be souls of the dead, some of them may be time travelers or something, or sort of like stone recordings of past events. Some of them might be that, but I think most of them are actually simply a case where you go into an altered state of consciousness that allows you to perceive beyond this dimensional reality. So across hyperspace into other parallel universes, and the ghosts are actually sort of like, I call it bleed overs, where they slightly merge with this universe to the point where some people can perceive them. Sometimes large numbers of people at the same time can perceive them. I saw a ghost once. I saw some ghost horses when I was with a girl, my girlfriend at the time. Now if you actually, I'll put some links in the description box to where I've discussed this before. It was the one where I saw the ghost horses in the park. That park is actually just a few hundred yards away, actually, in that direction, so it's quite close. Now, so this is that's an interesting sort of like, because like. There's also, I'll put a link in the description box to where I saw that little boy on my bedroom floor, because that's another interesting example of what I'm talking about. Light, there's a light shining at me, and I think it's a car. The thing is, whenever a light shines in my eyes like this, it buggers up my night vision. The little boy, I saw him kneeling on my floor, and he looked, like I said, he was kind of translucent. He looked like he was made of smoke, but smoke that kept its shape. And the same goes for the horses I saw in South Parks nearby. And and what I theorise is I'm actually seeing something that is in another universe. And as I said, the little boy on my floor, on the floor of my bedroom, he was kneeling on my bedroom floor, and he turned and looked at me. And I theorise that in whatever world he was in, he saw me and our eyes made contact. But I must have looked the same to him. I reckon maybe I looked like I was made out of smoke, because he was peering into this universe. To get a better idea of what I'm talking about, there's several good books you can read. One's called Flatland, which is by Edwin Abbott, and you can get it free online. It's very, very simple. In fact, I'll put a link in the description box, if I remember all these damn links, to Flatland, because it's a short novel. You can read it in an hour or so, and it's a novella, really, which really describes this kind of dimensional thing, higher dimensions, 3 dimensions. It's set in a 2-dimensional universe, which is called, so hence it's flat, and a 3-dimensional object comes in, and it's really, really, really fascinating. Another good book that's good to read, it's a trilogy actually, it's 3 books telling this in the same story, and that is the Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman. And that's recently the first part was made into a film called The Golden Compass. The book is called Northern Lights, the first book, but you can read the other books as well. And now that I've spoke of before. Another link in the description box when I talked about Gateway to a Parallel Universe. And this is where I was talking about. I read Stephen Mehrer's book. I mean, you must. I met Stephen Mehrer at the Exopolitics conference and interviewed him, if you remember. Now, that's what I think it may be happening in terms of ghostly appearances. Those that, of course, are not mistaken identity, fraud, lying, hysteria, whatever, you know, all the other stuff that the skeptics talk about. And sometimes they're right, you see, that's the problem. Sometimes the skeptics are right. So that's what I theorise some of the phenomena we call ghosts actually is. It's not dead people, not always. There was that incident where I tell you what, right, it's absolutely beautiful here, because there's, unlike St. Friedewald's night, there's not a cloud in the sky, and I can see all the stars, and I'm away from the streetlights, and I tell you what, right, you haven't seen stars until you've gone somewhere in the country where it's dark, and you look up in the sky, and it is an unbelievable sight. I can see the Milky Way there. Now there's the Big Dipper, or the Plough. You can recognise some of these constellations. And the problem is you can't see them. You won't be able to see them because this camera can't pick them up. It's actually very difficult to photograph stars. You need very long exposure and stuff like that. Oh. Now, it's funny to think, you know, that this world, this universe we see is so solid. It's just like, it's almost like a membrane. And even the scientists are calling it now. People like Michio Kaku and Stephen Hawking and people like that. They call it a membrane universe, and there's this M theory, membrane theory. This is doubling up. I think this expedition is actually doubling up as a skywatch, you know, because I'm going to look in the sky and see if I see anything strange in the sky that I can't explain, you know, because I have had UFO encounters as well as ghost encounters. No, I haven't had any sort of, like, you know, saucers landing in front of me and aliens getting out. I've never had that. I know people who have. I know a lot of people who have. I haven't. But I've seen things in the sky I can't explain. Now, come on, ghosties, come on out. I'll tell you what, right, I mean, you may be thinking, well, what's he doing? Going into this field, anywhere on his own, just saying, come on, ghosts, come and let me see you. Well, you see, I have had experiences like with spectral. I have had sort of like spectral entities appear, spectral images, but spectral figures. And I've done a little bit of serious ghost hunting. I travelled around a few years ago with this guy who was making a movie. The film was never produced, but we went to places with cameras, and I was basically the dog's body. I used to carry the lighting, and I used to go out and get the fish and chips and stuff like that. You know, it was good fun. But the film was cancelled. It was never produced. But I mean, I just had some weird experiences. I'll tell you, some very, very weird experiences. But you know, you know, I've never been like what you call an investigator. And, you know, I've never been one of these people who go, like Ross Hemsworth was, if you listen to the Panama radio where I interview him, where you go to places and you set up this equipment, like there's heat sensors and electrical field sensors and things like that. And they set up this very expensive looking equipment, which apparently allows people to see, you know, to pick up ghosts. Now, the thing about these, you can join one of these groups, and there's hundreds of these groups across the country. But a lot of people have a very low opinion of them, and it's quite understandable, because a lot of them are sort of like inspired by Most Haunted, and they seem to consist mostly of sort of like over-enthusiastic teenagers. And so, you know, you get a lot of I mean, I know people who've actually been involved in these groups, and they're so disillusioned, you know, some of them become skeptics, and I sometimes wonder if the unprofessionalism of the organisation they're a part of sort of assisted in them becoming skeptics. You know, can't help wondering that. There's another video I made. I'm not going to post a link to it because it's embarrassing. All right, but you could probably find it if you wanted to. It was called River Ghost, and it's where I described something that happened to me down by the river, and I wrote an article about this too. I saw a spectral figure by the river. Now I was walking down, basically down the towpath of the river Isis. It's what we call the Thames, towards where I lived, because I used to live in South Oxford. And I saw this image, this sort of like white cutout image, and it was almost like the Saint thing, you know, the white outline. Well, you know, it's the Matchstick Man in the Saint, the TV series, the Saint. But it was like a white cutout image, a humanoid image, and it was like cut out. It was like a flat cutout in space. And I approached it, and it ran away, and it ran at enormous speed, far faster than a man could run. It was soon out of sight. But I was right by the boat sheds. If you go to Google Maps, it's where the River Cherwell meets the River Thames, or Isis. And it's right by the boat sheds, the Oxford University boat sheds. And that is supposed to be a powerful energy point in ancient pre-Illuminati wisdom, because it is a confluence of two rivers. Which could explain why I had that experience. Now the video I made about it was, I don't like it because I'd had a couple of pints at the Isis Tavern and I was a bit tipsy. I act stupid in it. So I'm a bit embarrassed about that. I really am. It's a bit chilly tonight, you know. It's a bit on the cold side. Now, you may be wondering, I mean, it's a funny thing, like, because a lot of people who are into stopping the New World Order are also into the paranormal. There's a big crossover, but, you know, an overlap of membership. And some people might think, well, how come? You know, how come these two things are related? Now, Michael Barkan, someone I'm not terribly fond of, uses this phrase, the cultic milieu. Because he says if you believe in UFOs, you're likely to believe in ghosts, you're likely to believe in alternative medicine, you're likely to believe in conspiracy theories and things like that. You know, well, I mean, that is true, actually. I mean, I wouldn't use such patronising language as cultic milieu, but there is a lot of overlap in membership. Most of the people I know into UFOs are also, they believe in ghosts. Most of them conspiratorially aware. Most of the people who are conspiratorially aware use complementary alternative medicine or something similar. And I think it's now how these things are related is to do with the politics of the paranormal, because there is a political element to the paranormal. You may not think so, but there is, and this is to do with the fact that the New World Order seems to be built on two twin pillars. Well, it's built on lots of pillars, but in terms of the spirituality and religion and belief in the spiritual element of ourselves. Now, this is something I discussed with Steve in the radio show on Tuesday. Right, but basically, I mean, I've read Richard Dawkins' book. I've read a lot of skeptic books. And the funny thing about Richard Dawkins' book is I was absolutely astonished at how minimal it is in scope. I mean, I read almost all of it. I actually agreed with most of what was in it. Because he goes on a big rant about how all the evils of conventional religion. And Christopher Hitchens does the same in his book, because I've read that too. God is not great. He goes on this big rant about the evils of religion. And at the end of it all, he says, well, that's why there is no God. That's why materialism is true, because religion has been proven false. Well, this is an odd thing. And it's just symptomatic of what I'm talking about lack of scope. In our society, there are two conventional paths you can take in terms of God and religion. You're either an atheist or you're a religion. You believe in some religion. That is, you go to church, mosques, temples, whatever. There's no other option. It's either that, one or the other. It's the dog collar or it's the lab coat. It's the laboratory or it's the seminary. And I think that's false. I think that's a false paradigm, because it completely leaves out. And Dawkins hardly addresses this subject. In fact, I don't think he really understands it. And same goes for Hitchens, actually. And that that is personal, individual spirituality. And I think materialism and religion are both set up by the Illuminati to counteract that third option. That is individual, personal spirituality. See, in pre-Illuminati cultures, and me and Steve were talking about the Aborigines in Australia, you know, before the Europeans arrived, in other words, Illuminati-occupied society touched Australia, which was comparatively recently, just several centuries ago. They lived in a world where spirituality was just natural, like breathing. Someone died, you just see them the next day. In the spirit world, they come back and visit you, say hello, I'm fine. And you could go to the spirit world yourself, and they call it dream time, and you go on these dream time things. You know, it's then the Illuminati came along, Captain Cook, one of his agents, one of the Illuminati agents. Same with Cortez and Pizarro in the Americas, the conquistadors. And they wiped it all out. They wiped it out. And this is where the politics of the paranormal comes in, because it's very important to the New World Order that we don't believe in the paranormal, right? We believe in God, in the religion. We can go to church and believe in God in the religious sense, or we could believe in no God and just materialism, and you know, life's a bitch and then you die. NBA, NBA, NBA. You know. And what you'll find is that religion and science, that is organised religion and materialistic conventional science, are portrayed as opposites. You know, you get this war between science and religion, and this is basically what Dawkins is taking a side in. On the other hand, you get religious nutcases who, you know, like in America, you get these guys, and you know, you go to church and they say, "I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ, and I believe that God created me in a single day, and He created the world in 6 days, 4,000 years ago." And you see, these are the only two options. Now, you've got to take one side or the other in that debate. There's no other option. And what you'll find is that, all right, hi there. Religion and science, organised religion and materialistic science, will stand, you know, as they're portrayed as opposites, but they're actually what David Icke calls opposames. And they will unite. They will stand shoulder to shoulder in condemnation of anyone who chooses the third option. I mean, I'm someone like me, for example, or someone like Steve. I'm regarded as a lunatic by mainstream science. They think I'm a nutcase, right? Yes, mainstream religions would say I'm dabbling with the devil. But both of those things still oppose me, which is why I think both of those extremes are opposames. This is what I mean by the politics of the paranormal. I'm not everyone, you see, because I mean there are people who manage to, you know, people who believe in a conventional religion who have a genuine spirituality. It's a friend of mine on YouTube who often says she says the Lord's Prayer, but I know for a fact she's not a conventionally religious person. She's a spiritual person, but she says the Lord's Prayer. And there's a very, very interesting, very, very clever guy called Alistair McGrath. And he's one of Dawkins' biggest critics, and he's well worth listening to, I tell you. God, there's fog enveloping this meadow now, so it's bloody chilly, you know. I'm gonna have to go back. I can't put my gloves on because I've got gloves in here. I bought my gloves, but I can't operate the camera with my gloves on. Now, where are we? Yeah. Now, this turned out to be a long video. I mean, I think I'm going to go into this in more detail in my radio shows, in next week's radio show and the one after. But also, this is going to be the subject. This is going to be part of what I talk about in my speech at the Critical Mass Radio conference in Manchester. Now, you must have seen the adverts I've posted for that. If you can get there, it'd be brilliant. Please do come, if you can, to the Critical Mass Radio Time to Act conference, because I'm going to be speaking there, so you get to meet me. Now, that's reason enough to travel hundreds of miles to Manchester, isn't it? Well, if it's not, there's also 5 other speakers, and you get to meet everyone. It's a big social event. It'll be really good fun. So please get there if you can. I mean, you've seen the video. Scroll down my browse my videos. You'll see the adverts I put up for it. I'm going to be discussing this politics of the paranormal during my speech, along with other subjects. And I want you to be there because you can ask me questions from the floor. You can just put your hand up and you can ask me questions about it. So we can have a dialogue. Be like the comments box, except we're face to face. We can have a beer afterwards. So please do come to the Critical Mass Time to Act conference on 24th of November, Saturday 24th of November 2012 at Didsbury, Manchester. Go to criticalmassradio.co.uk for more details. Right. This video is now just turned 30 minutes long. I've been standing here for half an hour. I think it's about 8:30 in the evening. Beautiful sky. I've seen some lovely stars. But as far as in terms of the paranormal, I've seen absolutely nothing that I could call paranormal. Everything looks totally normal to me. Now, this happened last time, and then I said, let's call it a night then, and then I heard that voice in my ear, so I'm going to see if I can do it again. Right. Okay, let's call it a night. No, it hasn't worked this time. Never mind, never mind. Thank you for watching Panwo TV. Hospital porters, pride and dignity, stop the New World Order.